Continue to follow breaking news this morning out of Yolo County. 7 people have been arrested in connection to the deadly Esparto fireworks explosions. Let's give you a live look right now. The Yolo County District Attorney just started this press conference. Let's listen in.
Hundreds of law enforcement agencies around the state and the country, and we're grateful for their help. It has taken us across California, it's taken us across the nation, and it's even taken us across our national borders. It has been a massive investigation, and certainly during my 20-year tenure as the DA, it has been the largest we've ever undertaken. We've attempted to leave no stone unturned. On April 3rd, Friday of last week, all of this effort culminated in the decision of an independent criminal grand jury to indict 8 individuals on a multitude of charges, including 5 defendants for second-degree murder related to the 7 individuals who died on July 1st. And, as you will hear in a moment, the grand jury also alleged a decade-long conspiracy by certain named defendants to construct a massive and illegal fireworks and explosives operation here in Yolo County. Yesterday, in the early morning hours, law enforcement teams from around the state and country arrested the individuals who had been indicted. Those people include Gary Chan, Jack Lee, Ronald Botello, Douglas Tollefson, Sam Machado, Tammy Machado, Kenneth Chi, and Craig Cutright. I'd like to give some special thanks to the following agencies who assisted in the apprehension of all those indicted. The United States Marshals Pacific Southwest Regional Fugitive Task Force, the Sacramento Division, the Orange County, Florida Sheriff's Office, and the U.S. Marshals Central Florida Fugitive Task Force, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the California Department of Corrections Special Services Unit, the San Jose Police Department Covert Response Unit, the Yuba Sutter Regional SWAT Team, the Pinole Police Department, and the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. Thank you to all of you. Now, before we review the details of the indictment, I do want to take a moment to introduce the district attorney team that has been working on this investigation from the get-go and will continue to be involved in the case until its ultimate conclusion. So standing to my right, I'll start with Chief Deputy District Attorney Melinda Aiello. She will be overseeing this case in its entirety until the conclusion. To her right, you have Deputy DA Rachel Hilsinger, Supervising Deputy DA Rachel Hilsinger, Supervising Deputy DA Deanna Hayes, Deputy DA Clara Nabity, and to my left, we have Chief DA Investigator Dave Marshall, followed by Lieutenant Investigator Shad Bagley, DA Investigator Nate Hudson, and DA Investigator Brent Dawson. Also not standing here, but I want to call them out, our victim advocates. Throughout this investigation, we have heard the victims. We have heard how frustrated they have been. We have had deep empathy for their loss. We know that this process is long and terrible for them in many ways, but every single person up here thought about them every step of the way in trying to seek the truth in this case. And in that regard, we were assisted by our victim advocate, Estella Morales, and also Special Prosecutor Jonathan Raven. So with that, I will turn it over to Deputy DA Clara Nabity to go through the details of the indictment. And at the end of that presentation, we will take some questions.
Thank you, District Attorney Reisig. My name's Clara Nabity. I'm a deputy DA here in Yolo County, and I can provide a brief explanation of the indictments, which the court unsealed late yesterday. As District Attorney Reisig said, last Friday, a Yolo County criminal grand jury returned 2 indictments. The first is a 30-count indictment. There's also a separate 5-count indictment, and these are both for crimes related to the deadly explosions in Esparto, California last July 1st. The most serious charges are 7 counts of second-degree murder for each of the victims who perished in the explosion: Christopher Bocog, Neil Lee, Joel Melendez Jr., Jesus Ramos, Johnny Ramos, Carlos Rodriguez Mora, and Angel Voller. The criminal grand jury indicted 5 people for those murders: Kenneth Chi, Jack Lee, Gary Chan, Douglas Tollefson, and Samuel Machado. To briefly explain, the initial blast occurred on the eastern portion of the Machado property, and that's where the devastating pyrotechnics operations were consolidated. The evidence shows that that initial blast caused the death of these 7 victims. The criminal grand jury returned the indictment charging with murder the 5 individuals they believe were responsible for that initial deadly explosion. The indictment also charges multiple counts of felony conspiracy against 7 individuals. There is substantial overlap in the overt acts for the conspiracies charged. So I'm going to summarize together counts 8, 10, and 13. Those counts allege a decade-long conspiracy which turned the property of a former Sheriff's Lieutenant, Sam Machado, into the Northern California hub for an illegal enterprise that imports and sells illegal explosives on the black market. This is not a case just about fireworks. They are devices that have so much more explosive fireworks than the law allows that they can't be considered fireworks. They are explosives, but they were designed and packaged for consumer sales under private labels. The indictment identifies certain of these private labels: Beandejo branded devices affiliated with Kenny Chi, For the Streets branded explosives affiliated with Douglas Tollefson. Ron Botello's brands were Big Bully and Bad Dad, and Craig Cutright used the private label Double OG. The indictment alleges Kenneth Chi led the enterprise with Jack Lee and Doug Tollefson with the aid of Gary Chan. The indictment alleges Craig Cutright and Ronald Botello were part of devastating pyrotechnics, but that they focused on a separate company called Black Star Fireworks starting in about 2023, which also operated from the Machado property. Counts 29 and 30 are specific to the Black Star operation. The alleged overt acts in counts 8, 10, and 13 describe Samuel Machado's participation, included using his role as a trusted lieutenant to help shield the conspiracy as it expanded. And the expansion was significant. The indictment alleges the footprint of devastating pyrotechnics expanded from 13 storage containers on the Machado property in 2015 to more than 50 in 2025, in addition to a 5,000 square foot warehouse. Over those 10 years, the indictment alleges the illegal enterprise was able to import more than 11 million pounds of explosives and related materials. Approximately 1 million pounds were stored on the Machado property on July 1st, 2025. The indictment also describes overt acts related to licenses. The individuals charged, certain of them, did hold certain licenses issued by ATF and CAL FIRE. Not one storage container on the Machado property was licensed by ATF. There is no CAL FIRE or other license that permits the storage of explosives near homes and public roadways. There are additional charges in the 30-count indictment against the 7 individuals. They include charges for a dangerous workplace, unlawfully causing a fire, insurance fraud by Kenneth Chi, and charges of child endangerment, animal cruelty, tax fraud, and possession of illegal assault weapons against Samuel Machado. As DA Reisig said, the investigation is not over. We remain fully committed to pursuing justice for the victims, and we can briefly take questions.
And just a couple comments. So this is still an ongoing investigation. There still are individuals that are being investigated. We're not going to discuss any details about that. And frankly, because this is an indictment, we're not at a trial stage yet. We're very limited in what we can share with you at this stage of the proceedings. These people are presumed innocent until proven guilty, but the grand jury indictment is a significant step in the process, and we will do our best to answer questions given those caveats. So go ahead and shoot in the back.
How will the people be arraigned? Will they be brought back to Yolo County, or will they be arraigned in the jurisdictions where they're being held right now?
Good question. So the arraignments will take place on Monday at 1:30 in Department 1 for the individuals who have been booked into the Yolo County Jail, and I believe there are at least 5?
I believe so.
5 who were booked in the Yolo County Jail. And then there were 2 that were arrested out of the area, far out of the area, one in Florida and another one up north. And so they will eventually be brought back and then arraigned and joined into the case.
Can you talk a little bit about the child endangerment and animal cruelty charges that led to those?
Claire?
The evidence shows there was a substantial volume, and the indictment alleges there was a substantial volume of explosives, including illegal explosives, stored adjacent to a family pool, and approximately 1 million pounds of explosive material stored near a residence led the criminal grand jury to return indictments for animal cruelty and child endangerment.
So we're talking about pets that were on the property?
Yes.
And children of the Machados?
Yes.
Okay.
You say that Sheriff Machado used his shield to shield the business basically from scrutiny. Can you detail that at all? Like, did that conspiracy work?
The indictment includes a number of overt acts. If you refer, there are specific overt acts, including, for example, defendants using their positions to make false statements to the public, law enforcement entities, and the county about the nature of the business. So I would refer you to the overt acts that do include specific allegations about everybody's role in the conspiracy.
Can I ask on that too? Hi. So when you talk about that, I mean, these businesses were named and advertised over the course of this 10 years for small towns, cities, using these fireworks for their 4th of July festivities, and were named by, in documents at city council meetings. I mean, it was operating like a legal business. Can you talk a little bit to that? Was the, position of Machado part of that they were able to sell this to cities as an organization that was legal? I mean, that's the part I think if you could clarify a little bit about that.
That's a good question, and I don't want to speak beyond the indictment. What I can say is that there's a difference between a display business and sort of the illegal street sales of private label explosives. And so the indictment is focused on an alleged conspiracy of importing and selling on the street illegal explosives. And the display business is not really the focus of our criminal investigation.
The back end part that this is focused on in the way that basically is what you're saying.
A display business isn't, that's not necessarily a criminal enterprise. Importing illegal explosives and selling them on the street is.
So, like, these companies, Bean Deho and Big Bully, did anyone have ownership of these companies? Were they manufacturing some of these fireworks? Like, what was their connection to these companies?
The indictment describes the companies, identifies the companies as Devastating Pyrotechnics and Black Star Fireworks. The brands that were imported include Bindejo, For the Streets, Bad Dad, Big Bully, Double OG. So they're brands, not companies, if that makes sense.
Is there ownership of the brand? Did Kenny Chi, for example, did he have an ownership stake in Bindejo?
The indictment includes a specific overt act alleging that Kenny Chi imported explosive devices labeled as Bindejo fireworks.
Could you please go into a little bit about workplace conditions and safety and what the expectations were and differences between what we believe the conditions were and what they should have been?
I think that's outside the scope of what we can talk about today, unfortunately.
Is that something that you are actively investigating as part of this?
I would say that's part of an ongoing investigation. There are also other agencies that have looked at that, and I think it's beyond the scope of what we can talk about today.
What specific actions led to filing murder charges and not just negligence?
So keep in mind that this is an indictment by a criminal grand jury, and those are just normal citizens who received a summons to appear and then were impaneled to sit as the charging entity in this case. So it was their decision. The indictment is actually the decision of those grand jurors after hearing the evidence as to what they believed were appropriate charges. And so that's the answer. You had citizens of Yolo County that heard the evidence, and they believed that it was appropriate to charge 5 people with murder, second-degree murder.
Are you able to talk about CAL FIRE's investigation into the cause of the explosion and what specifically they found?
No. I mean, the most I can say to you is that CAL FIRE was obviously a critical player in the investigation. There were, as I said, dozens, if not hundreds, of entities involved in assisting us. They were pivotal, and I think, anything beyond that, I can't get into the evidence.
Can you share if the sale of these explosives over the course of those 10 years led to any other devastation, whether it's here or any other part of the state?
Do we have overtax to that effect? Yeah, we can't get into that, so sorry.
This is obviously a significant case for your office. Can you just describe kind of your emotions and feelings today among you and the other people who are here once this kind of finalized and being in this moment now?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's, we're tired. But, this was a terrible, terrible event for those 7 people who died in the entire community. As you all know better than anybody, I mean, it's a news story that's traveled around the world for good reason. It was so devastating and scary at the same time. So we have been committed from day one to seeking the truth and finding out what happened and who was responsible for it. And as you can see from this team, it's a big team. We're a medium-sized office in the state of California. We only have, 35-ish attorneys and a limited number of peace officers. And so when I said this is the largest investigation we've ever undertaken during my time here, it's true. It was massive. And we did have to rely upon agencies, the federal agencies, state agencies, local agencies, to assist us. But we really did seek to leave no stone unturned. I meant what I said, which is that we heard the victims loud and clear, even though we weren't telling them what we were doing. We had empathy for what was going on with them, and our goal all along has just been seek the truth and move the case along. And so, the decision to impanel a grand jury was one that I made. And I made that decision because I have great confidence in the independence of the criminal grand jury and their ability to, if they decide, like they did in this case, to return a criminal indictment is a very significant step in the process, because it is the conscience of the community when they come back with an indictment with charges of this magnitude. Again, these are just normal people who were brought in and sat as jurors and made these decisions. And so we believe that it's certainly, it's validation that we've done extensive good work, and but we're not done. The investigation's ongoing, and we won't be done for quite a while. And meanwhile, I just acknowledge again, I mean, the individuals who are indicted are presumed innocent until proven guilty. They all have competent lawyers. There's going to be years of litigation, I would presume, and that's how the system works. And we'll do our part in that.
We are 3 months away for the 1-year mark on this tragic incident. What would be your message for the families today?
Yeah, I think I've said it again and again. I mean, our heart is with them. We're deeply, we have deep empathy for their loss. As demonstrated today, we've been on it from day one. We're committed to pursuing this to the very end. We will be with them to the best we can with our victim advocates and our team. It's not going to be, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And, you know, be patient.
Can you talk
In the
about
back?
how Mr. Chi was able to obtain explosive permits, even though he apparently had felony convictions, which barred him from getting such licenses?
The indictment alleges the ATF license was held by Gary Chan, and that Kenny Chi held CAL FIRE licenses that did not permit, that did not authorize importing or possessing or selling explosives that are labeled 1.3 G by the Department of Transportation.
And in the back?
Can you talk a little bit about the assault weapons charges? What led to those?
I know. Hi, I'm Deanna Hayes. We were kind of compartmentalized a little bit. But we did. Then alleged in the information or in the indictment will show that on Mr. Machado's property, 4 separate assault weapons were seized in the aftermath of the explosion, and so those were found in the footprint of his home and of his warehouse, and so those are what led to the assault weapons were not licensed and were not registered as assault weapons under Mr. Machado or any other person that had the right to possess them.
He had a firearms business, and there's been some speculation that he stored many of those firearms in the warehouse. Is that, besides the ones that you were able to recover, was there a suggestion that there was more that was happening in the warehouse in terms of firearms distribution?
We know that the 4 that we have alleged were illegally possessed.
Do you know what intent they were? What intent he had with those weapons?
I can't go into that.
Okay.
What type of weapons were they?
I believe they are listed by name in the indictment. I think they should be right there in the charges.
Yeah, good. All right, anything else? Okay, thank you, everybody. Good job, Bass. Nice job.
All right, you were just watching as investigators detailed the official charges in the deadly Esparto fireworks explosion in Yolo County. You heard from multiple investigators, but Yolo County's DA described this as being a massive investigation that crossed state lines in order to apprehend the suspects. In short, there were 8 individuals who were indicted. 5 face second-degree murder charges. The DA also said that this investigation uncovered a decades-long conspiracy to construct a massive illegal fireworks operation in Yolo County.